Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this second session. This becomes so important. You've looked at relationships. Now it's time to say, let's look at our home and see what our kids think about this. If you're like me, you kind of want a peaceful home. Now I also know as a parent, I want things in order. I want things lined out. I want things the way that I want them. But I've got to make some concessions at times to make sure that I'm creating a place of rest for my teens, because they're having to live in a culture that you and I have said that we're glad that we don't have to grow up in. So anyway, I'm sitting here. I don't know whether you know this. I'm in East Texas in the United States. It is a beautiful spring day outside, and wherever you are, I hope that you have the opportunity to sit back and really spend some time reflecting on your home, because it's an extension of who you are. Okay, do this. I want you to text your teen this question. Grandparents, I want you to do the same. And you go, well, I don't text. Well, learn how to text if you want to remain connected with your grandkids who are teens. Ask them this: what one word would you use to describe our home or my home? And when they answer, don't correct them. Don't tell them where they're wrong, how they need to answer you a little bit better next time. Don't justify it. Don't explain it away. You know, if they say something that has an ouch to it, you may want to go back to them later and say, hey, I don't want our home to be like that. How can we make it different? It may be this. It may be this. Every time a child walks into your home, they feel like everything becomes tense. They feel like they can't relax. They feel like they can't say what needs to be said. They feel like they just have to listen to you going on and on and on and on. They can't just stop and find rest. This becomes important. Home is that important place, because I guarantee you this: if your kids can't find rest at home, they will find rest somewhere else. So when you start asking questions, you're going to hear some things that you don't like. And remember, you're giving them an example that it's okay to ask questions. And what I'm doing is giving them the opportunity to see me asking them questions in hopes that they will come to me and start asking questions. Asking questions and maybe about life, about how I see it differently, what I think, or maybe how things need to happen, what I think about certain situations. Now be careful, don't give answers all the time. The key is to remain in communication continually. I don't want to keep going on and on and on. If you're a grandparent, your grandkids don't want to hear about all those medical issues and everything that's ailing you. That's not where they're at. It may be where you're at, but it's not where they're at. Is the atmosphere in your home one that is relaxed, or is it intense all the time? Is it just intense? Always got to make the bed, always got to clean the bathroom, always got to clean the carpet, always got to keep everything straightened up, got to make sure I don't leave anything a mess, got to clear my plates, always have chores to do, always go to bed, always have to study all the time, always have to get up on a certain time, always have to do the chores. It just drives you crazy after a while. Or is it a place of rest? Scripture says this: come to me all who are weary and heavy laden, and you will find what? Rest. Rest for your soul. And so one of the goals has got to be to create an atmosphere of rest where a child can feel comfortable. Now, if you're a grandparent, let me tell you something. I want my home, I've got 4 grandkids, I want my home to be a place where they can come and have fun, where they can relax, where they're not going to be corrected, where I'm not going to tell them what they're doing wrong or how they look or anything else. I want them to be able to just relax and feel comfortable. You know, when they start moving through their adolescent years, those are ages of training, where we start transferring life truths and biblical concepts to them by a hands-on approach that allows them more and more control in their life. So they're ready to take on life in the world that they're going to live in. If my home is so intense that they won't ever sit down and listen to anything, then I don't have the opportunity to share anything with them. And perhaps the reason you don't engage with your child or your grandchild is because when they walk in your front door, it immediately becomes a place that's sterile, that's got to be perfect, that never allows for someone to rest, and they don't feel like they can relax, or they can maybe let their hair down a little bit. Now, I believe in having rules. Believe me, those parameters that is where I say that this is what I want from you and this is what I'll do for you as I participate in discipline. And discipline is helping a child get to where they want to go and keeping them from where they don't want to end up. But it means that as we do those rules, I can also create the atmosphere of rest, even when they've done something wrong. And this intent of mine is that I want to keep pushing them to take control of their lives, always. You know, you don't want some 25-year-old clown on your couch sitting around playing video games when they're 25 years old. You want them to take control of their life. You don't want to control them all the time. So what that means is now you need to start letting them make more and more decisions and take on more and more responsibility for life. Like this. If you have a 17-year-old, you're having to wake up every morning to get to go to school, then you're not doing them a service at all. If you're doing your kids' laundry at 12 and 13, they need to learn how to do laundry. If you're doing their homework for them, doing all their extracurricular activities and not forcing them to do those things, then you're keeping them from assuming responsibility for their lives. If you're at a restaurant and you don't even let them order their own food, then you're taking control. If you're always telling them what to do, continually, excessively, every little thing, and every little thing may be great, but if it's just a constant you controlling everything, you are keeping your child from taking control of their life, and they will end up in failure at some point when they leave your home, whether they go into the armed services, whether they get a job, whether they get married, or whether they go off to school. All in a place where imperfection is allowed is so important. I want a child to know that when they come to my home, that I allow them to be imperfect, that they don't have to have it all together, that we can laugh at things, and at the same time, not be afraid to talk about the difficulties or mistakes that they've made. I think what happens is this, that sometimes we want so many great things for our kids that we push those expectations on them that they're fearful that if they make a mistake, they're going to lose the relationship. And I want a child to know, just as I said in the previous session, that there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And how I do that is by engaging with them in such a way that allows for imperfection, which means this. When a child starts to turn 12 and 13 years of age, I'm moving out of a teaching model into a training model. In a teaching model, you want perfection. But in a training model, you want to make sure that you're talking about imperfection. And so that's what I'm going to start doing with my kids and my grandkids. I'm not going to tell them about all the great things that I've done. I'm going to start talking about the mistakes that I've made. Places where I've been a failure, places where I haven't done what I've wanted to do or lived up to an expectation that I had. I think what happens in the midst of that is that they learn that it's okay to not have it all together. Because remember, they're coming out of a world where they think everything's perfect. And then they turn 11 and 12 and they begin to realize that not everything is as perfect as you think it is. And so if they're having to come home and live with perfect people, no wonder they're pushing you away. That's hard to live with perfect people. I would venture to say that the reason that you get attracted to me is not because I've written books or I'm on the radio or I speak or do a series. It's more when I make comments that Jan and I were in counseling. Jan, my wife, she and I have been married for 44 years. When we were in counseling, or that my son was a mess at certain times in his life, or my daughter wrestled with an eating disorder, or my wife was sexually abused, or that I had problems with anger growing up, or all those things. Anything that I mentioned to you, that I got fired from a job, and that's how I ended up starting this place called Heartlight. I think what happens is this, as I begin to share the struggles that I go through in life, I identify with kids. They begin to realize that it's okay to struggle and there's hope that you can get through it. But to think that a child would ever think that things have to be perfect would be totally wrong, because life is not perfect. And so I want to share those imperfections at the right time, age appropriately, and I don't have to give details of everything, but I can tell them that it's okay to struggle. And so start sharing those areas of your life where you used to struggle or where you currently struggle. It allows teens to understand that it's okay to struggle through situations and come to a good conclusion. Hey, when I was in my 20s, there was a book that was written called I'm Okay, You're Okay. Okay, by the time I was 30, I wanted to write a book called I'm Okay, You're Not. By the time I was 40, Jane and I were in counseling because we were struggling through our marriage a little bit. I wanted to write a book called I'm Not Okay and Neither Are You. And then when I turned 50, I wanted to write a book called I'm Not Okay and I Don't Care Anymore. And now that I've turned 60, it's one of those things that I think I want to write a book called Tasering Kids God's Way, or Shut Your Pie Hole and Learn to Listen, or Just Because Your Butt Has a Crack doesn't mean you're broken. Now here's the thing, as I've gotten older, I've learned to laugh. There's a few of you that just heard me say those things and you're going, I can't believe he'd say that. But as you get a little bit older, you find out it's okay to say some things. It's okay to relax. It's okay that I'm not going to, ruin some vast plan that's been made by making comments and making fun of things or joking with things. Realize that it's okay to not be perfect. And it's even okay to sometimes be a mess. I've also learned this as I've gotten older, that I can laugh at a lot of things. It's okay. But it doesn't matter what other people think. That I can be myself even when other people don't agree with me. And I've learned what's important and what's not. And that attitude creates an atmosphere that welcomes relationship. It encourages one to look at life and allows people to be genuine and authentic, something that a teen longs to see in life. Grandparents, this is why it's so essential that you be involved in the life of your teen grandchildren, because you're old enough to have learned some important lessons about life, and they need to hear those things. This creates an atmosphere of rest in your home, when you can learn to laugh, when you can learn to relax, when you can learn to enjoy things. Let me ask you this question. When was the last time you laughed in your home? A really good belly laugh with everybody sitting around the table. Once you begin to create this world of rest, kids don't feel like they have to be pushed away, or they don't feel like they have to have it all together. And they realize that parents and grandparents sometimes struggle just as much as they do, as they learn how to apply those biblical values to a culture that is quite contrary to how many of us were raised. So here's some practical questions for you. Did you ask your teen what that one word was that they would use to describe your home? Now ask them what they'd like to see different in your home. It will make for some great discussion around the dinner table tonight. Okay, second question is this. What are some areas that you can give up control and back off a bit and give your teen some breathing room? Text them this. Do you think I'm too controlling? Ask them and see. Okay, what are some responsibilities that you could transfer to your teen? Laundry, chores, care of animals, giving money to others. Let your whole family decide where you're going to give your money. But are some other things that you can include with them so that you're allowing them to take control of your life? That you're allowing them to take control of their life in the midst of a home that allows for rest? Do you have all the rules for your home lined out? Here's the 5 things I want from you, and here's the 5 things that I want to give you. It's important to have structure. And when I talk about relationships and changing the home, my encouragement is to do it in such a way that makes them feel comfortable in the relationship with you. Hey, thanks. Enjoy your time listening to this session. I look forward to sharing with you in session number 3.